Hi, I'm Lisa from LearnPianoOnline.com, and today we're going to learn something really exciting because this is going to speed up your note reading. This will help you whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced student. And even if you haven't started lessons yet, this will help you learn how to read music quickly. These are some tricks that many musicians use, and they're pretty common, but they're not really taught. So what I want to do is first tell you about anchor notes. Well, first let's look at the staff. There's 5 lines, and if you're a piano student, you already know this. The 5 lines and 4 spaces is called a staff, and on it are notes. One of the first notes that you learn when playing the piano is a middle C. We're going to pretend this is the treble clef. This is the right hand staff. So we're going to look at middle C. This is where it's positioned on the staff. And you know where middle C is located on the piano. Middle C is located to the left of the 2 black keys towards the middle of the piano. Now you can go through the curriculum and find this out later if you don't know what it is, but you don't really need to know the name of this note to know how to play it. And that's the whole point of speed reading, is you don't need to know the names of any note to know how to play it, because you're going to learn how notes, where they sit on the staff in comparison to where they're located on the piano. And so what we're going to do right now is look at the lines of the staff first. Let's put a note on each line of the staff. I'm not going to tell you the names of the notes because you don't need to know that. You might already know it, but you don't need to know it to be able to play it. Okay, so what you'll do at the piano is, if you know where middle C is, now you need to know a couple notes. Those are called anchor notes. So let's say you know middle C. You know where it is on the piano. So you're going to play middle C. And every time you come to a line note, middle C is a line note, the next line note is a skip on the piano. You just skip one white note. The next line is another skip on the piano. You just skip another white note. So as you're traveling up or down between lines, you're going to travel up or down on the piano, skipping a white note. Okay? So, let's go to the piano and look at this for a minute, okay? Okay, at the piano, here's middle C. And if you see a note on the next line on the staff, you're going to skip one white note. The next line on the staff will be another skip. And the next line, another skip. What I wrote on the board went all the way up this far. And if you're going to, and they skip down as well, so depending on which direction the note is written, you'll skip up or skip down as long as it's a line note, the very next line note. Okay, the same thing happens with space notes. From space to space is a skip on the piano. If it's sitting on top or if it's sitting below, that's also a space note. A space note is any note that does not have a line going through the middle of it. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the anchor note again. Remember, middle C was our anchor note, and what I mean by anchor note, it's a note that you know. You know the name of it and you know where to find it on the piano. So let's say this is our anchor note. This is the note you know. This is A. Okay? You know where it is on the piano. Okay, so when you're reading music, if the next note is a space note, then you're going to skip one white note on the piano, just like we did with the line notes. Anytime you skip from one space to the next space, one space, you're not going to go from You're not going to skip a space. You're going from one space to the next, either up or down, will be a skip of a white note on the piano. Now, we don't need to go to the piano for me to show you this, but if you started on A, the note that you know, and you were reading your music, you don't need to know the names of these to be able to play them. Okay, so I'm going to erase this and I'm going to show you another trick to, obviously your music isn't going to be written in just line to line or space to space. So I'm going to show you a couple more tricks to know how to find your notes quickly by using steps also. Okay, now I'm going to show you notes that are consecutive on the staff, starting with a line note to the next note will be a space note, then a line note, and then a space, line, space. We'll stop there. Okay, so now what you do is you play, when you see a note right from a line to a space, is going to be right next to each other on the piano. Right next to each other on the piano. If it's going up, it's the note to your right. If your note is going down, then it's to the left. Did I say that right? Right, it's to the left of the piano. So consecutive notes are easy to read. If you're on this note, you don't need to know the name of this note to play it, or this note. If you're on this note, you don't need to know the name of the notes. If you establish a few anchor notes, notes that you know, that's what an anchor note is again. Notes that you know, you might want to have an anchor note somewhere down here that you know, an anchor note somewhere in the middle, and an anchor note up here that you're very familiar with, so that when you get to the notes up here, you'll be able to visualize your anchor notes, so that you'll be able to know how many steps or skips, lines or spaces to go up or down in relation to your anchor note. That's why an anchor note is important. Okay, now I'm going to show you one more. Okay, so when you're playing music, not everything is going to be a step or a single skip. So I'm going to show you one more distance so that you can have a little bit more leverage at the piano when you're trying to speed read. Okay, so let's say you have a line note, and then you have another line note, but you're skipping one. Okay? Before I go on, I'm going to show you that same thing with a space note. A space note, skip a space note to the next space note. Okay, so any line note to a skipped line or space to another space where you skip a space is going to be a 5-finger span on the piano. Now, let's go to the piano and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, what I mean by a 5-finger span is if the first note is on a line note and the next note is on a line note, a skipped line note, that's going to be your 5th finger. There'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers in between, but it's a hand span, so you don't need to count, you just need to know how to hold your hands. And same with a space to a space with a space in the middle. That's going to be a 5-finger span. Now, the right terminology for that is an interval, which is distance, of a 5th. Okay, just so you know that the correct terminology would be an interval. That's a 5th interval. And when we were talking about the skips, when it was just line to line or space to space, those are called 3rd intervals. You can see why, 1, 2, 3. Or 5th interval, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. As with any new concept, at first it's going to look really confusing to you, but as you practice, these little tricks, it'll become second nature, and you will be able to read your music quicker as you recognize these intervals that I talked about, the third interval and the fifth interval. And I forgot to mention that when they're next to each other, the steps, those are second intervals. When notes are sitting right next to each other, those are second intervals. Okay, so what I want you to do now is go get a piece of music, something you've never played, and try to apply some of these tricks that I just taught you. And I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Try not to think of what the names of the notes are as you're doing it. Try to do it by just relying on these interval tricks. Okay, enjoy.